Here we are again. Me sitting here getting ready to listen to some more Canterbury Scene Retrospective. This is the Subterranean Visions, kind of based on the Subterranean's Jack Kerouac novel, kind of about his obsession with the sort of jazz bebop period in the 40s. And so that's what this channel is. It's kind of our own little underground club into the darkness where you can sort of be enveloped with music, but a lot of different styles here. So yeah, basically I've been a musician since I was 15 or so. I've gotten into audio engineering and I got into lutherie, built a few instruments here and there. And now, yeah, I felt like having a space where I could interact more with people and get more ideas as far as digging deeper into the music archives, There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of different genres, and there's never enough time to sort of scour it all by yourself. So we find a lot of things through community and through each other, initially from our families and friends, right? If you're lucky to have an older sibling, you probably got a lot of stuff through them. Force-fed, or if not voluntary all the time, sometimes force-fed into you. So, but this is voluntary. So just looking here to share, uncover, and rediscover music insights, explorations, inspirations through your interaction, through your recommendations, through your perspectives. I take that all as support for the channel, and it's all here to just dig deeper into the history and research and music out there from all periods and all genres. So before I get into the next iteration of the Canterbury Scene, I just want to say, trying to make this channel a little bit more efficient with things that I'm coming out with. So monthly, it's always going to be a continuous sort of full album listens. So I'm going to keep polls coming as far as what's going to be the next full album. And it's either going to be from recommendations, from polls, or once in a while it may be things that I just want to showcase on the channel for everybody else. So it's either incoming or outgoing or a mixture of both. So full albums, there's always going to be a recommendation episode at least once a month where I take all your recommendations and I compile them, listen to them, and sort of bring them and then show gratitude for these, for me. So hearing them for the first time. So I've done that a couple times already, and you guys give some great recommendations. So I'm so happy to it keeps a heavy list going of stuff to listen to, but there's some great gems in there, and I definitely appreciate I'm always ready to be inspired. But what we are here for is a continuation of the Canterbury Scene. So we're at the Robert Wyatt. I decided, I wasn't going to do his solo album at first, but I said, let's just add one more. So Robert Wyatt, obviously huge in the Canterbury Scene, one of the originators, possibly the originator. Robert Wyatt went from the David Allen Trio to the Wildflowers to Soft Machine to Matching Mole, and also his solo album here. So just to give a quick idea of who was on the album, this album came out in 1970, An End of an Ear. And this had Robert Wyatt on drums, piano, organ, keyboards, harmonica. Now, the songs that I'm going to listen to, I don't know if it's going to have all of these members or which members, but these are all of the members that I could find out on this particular album. It also had Neville Whitehead on bass, Mark Sherrig on cornet, Elton Dean on alto sax and saxello, Mark Elledge on piano, Cyril Ayers on assorted percussion, and David Sinclair on organ. And I will go into more of those guys as I listen to it. But let's just jump into it because it's already been... I'm trying to do shorter intros to just get to the music, but I feel like maybe I'm long-winded or maybe there's just too much information I should leave for later in the video. Okay, so we're going to do this one. This one's called To Carla, Marsha, and Carolyn for Making Everything Beautifuler. And I think I had read, I may read it afterwards, but what the meaning of the title was about or who these people were. I think I did write it down, but for now, let's just listen to this one. To Carla, Marsha, and Carolyn for Making Everything Beautifuler. So yeah, it was an interesting. It sounded like it wasn't the first song on the track, obviously. So I think it was actually the eighth song. So this was not an introduction, but definitely maybe it was a palate cleanser. I haven't listened to, obviously I haven't heard any of these. The only group out of this whole retrospective I've really listened to is Gong. So most of these albums, all these albums except for Gong, I have not heard any of it. So I'm not sure what's going on. But I think in just listening to snippets of the songs in order to pick a couple to listen to, I do get, I can hear enough where I'm like, whether this is like very mainstream or it's going to be, we're on it from mainstream to very avant-garde. I can kind of hear snippets of what may be. So this album for him, just from the snippet, sounds like it's a mixture of, obviously not this song, but a lot of the other tunes are very avant-garde. He's not following sort of stereotypical chord progressions and arrangements and things like that. They're very experimental sounding, right? So, and this one is too, although it sounds very pleasing. It's very kind of euphoric sounding. It's all, it's a really nice texture and layering with instruments between piano, organs. I'm not sure if there were what other keyboards they were playing on it, but basically, yeah, it sounds like they had organ, piano, keyboards, at least 4 or 5, sometimes 4 all at the same time. Between 2 organs maybe playing, or piano playing the sort of backdrop progression, kind of like a 2-chord progression, and then organ and or piano kind of interspersing all kinds of little things happening, and then kind of organ. A lot of layering, a lot of texture, really, overall. So I would take this, if something's going to be unstructured, I would take something a little bit more euphoric sounding and sort of ambiguous for sure. Just because at least it's, I guess I can take it in a little easier than something that sounds more like chaotic and it's a little bit harder to take in. But that's just me. But anyway, so yeah, so that probably was just Robert Wyatt. That's just piano, organ, keyboards, all doing 4 or 5 or 6 different instruments layering on that. I think Elton Dean and David Sinclair on organ on maybe coming up. So David Sinclair, obviously he did play with David Sinclair was with Robert and the Wildflowers, and then they split to Caravan, and then I think he reunited with Robert Wyatt and Matching Mole and Hatfield. And so that's David Sinclair. Elton Dean, I believe he was on, I think he's coming up in the retrospective on alto sax. He's coming up on, I think, his own album with either Keith Tippett or on the Centipede. So he's coming up in a couple. But the rest of the guys, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if they were playing in any other groups. Cyril Ayers, I'm not sure if he's related to Kevin Ayers. Mark Schurig, Neville Whitehead. So yeah, so far I'm not sure what else they did. But if you know any of the other players on this, but yeah, let me just talk quickly about. So Robert Wyatt. We'll get into the last next another Robert Wyatt tune on this End of an Ear. So he said of the motivation to release that album, I suddenly realized that I was in my mid-20s and I got a job. Everything was very tidy, much too predictable. I just felt like a bit of a musical promiscuity. It's not supposed to be some kind of great alternative to the soft machine. I just thought it would be nice to have an album like that by somebody. So, recorded in August of 1970, the album is a mix of experimental music, free jazz, and no-lyric vocalizations, which he described as not songs, more as an alternative to playing instruments. An acquired taste for many, it provides an insight into Robert Wyatt's musical mindset at the time. A month ahead of the album's release, Wyatt told Sounds Magazine, "We just went in blank and played and doodled around to see what came out. It's nearly an hour long, and probably the only real tune on it is a Gil Evans thing called Las Vegas Tango." During the recording of the album interview with Melody Maker, Wyatt had interesting ideas about the material he'd record. He said, "Maybe we will get into doing our own versions of soft machine numbers. That would be nice, getting another angle on them with a flowing string bass line instead of the fuzz bass guitar." Some of the musicians he picked to help him record the music were familiar to Soft Machine. Present and past members Elton Dean on sax and Mark Schurig on cornet. In addition, he invited bassist Neville Whitehead from Keith Tippett's group and David Sinclair from Caravan on organ. So, yeah, as I said, there was some previous playing with the players in either other groups or previous, with Wildflowers and Caravan. So, yeah, it definitely fits in with what I'm hearing as far as his ideas, intentions for the album, being very, not with this song personally, but I think the other material are much more experimental and less ties with sort of, playing instruments or, compositional ideas, typical for songs that time. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely fits in with one aspect of the Canterbury scene as he sees it, sort of improvisation, free jazz. I don't know, I had this one set aside, and these are like months ago, maybe weeks ago when I'm looking, so I don't remember the song, but I picked this one called To Saintly Bridget. Okay, here we go. I love that whistling. I don't know what that is. So this might have gone on into a different song, so it kind of gets cut off like that. I assume so. But anyway, yeah, this was actually really, I kind of did err on the side of brevity for these two tracks because I feel like they're all both in the sort of the 2 minute to 3 minute range. But I feel like that's a fantastic place to be for introduction to experimental music or free jazz. Free jazz I can listen to longer for sure, but I don't mind it if it's short. But it sounds like this one was gonna go into a different direction. Maybe it's so they cut it into maybe a different song anyway. So maybe it's not meant to be listened to in this 2 minute segment. But yeah, it's definitely digestible to me. I definitely like it in that sense, to be able to hear what they're doing. So yeah, that was Robert Wyatt on drums. So I love it, especially in the second half. He was really going into, actually, it felt like he was feeling really comfortable and he was really experimenting more. So I loved his drumming, sounded great on there, even if at times it felt a little off kilter, but I'm sure that was on purpose. That was part of the package. So yeah, that one, drums, bass, Neville Whitehead. Yeah, he sounded great playing. I saw like an upright bass there, and then it sounded like you had Elton Dean on both sides, doing harmonizing with himself on alto sax and perhaps saxello. And then I don't know, was there? I didn't hear whether there was. I didn't hear any piano. So I don't know. I'd have to go listen to it again. But what I remember is the drums, the sax, and the bass. I didn't hear any other sort of piano sort of muddying it up, because it sounded like it was just, it gave it that freedom, I think the less you have sometimes gives you more of an illusion of that freedom. So just having the trio, the bass, drums, and saxophone, it feels like you're missing the foundational, the chord rhythm section, whether piano or guitar. You're missing the chords, you're missing all that. So it gives you much more freedom to sort of fill in it gives the listener the freedom to fill in sort of what's missing, and where's it sort of all residing, where's it all sitting. So it feels much more like you're kind of floating along with the instruments. But yeah, that one was a great, as I was starting to say, that one was a great bookmark to the other song. Yeah, that one was very like ethereal, very like euphoric sounding with just keyboards and piano and organ. And then this one was, very much just free jazz. But yeah, I love both of them actually for different textures, and they're both textures that I can listen to very, very easily. So yeah, I really liked this one. Neville Whitehead, I feel like sometimes I have to look up a little bit more. So yeah, Neville Whitehead played bass on this, and he was at the 1971 Berlin Jazz Festival's New Violence Summit along with Jean-Luc Ponty. And he was a New Zealand bassist and luthier who was an active member of the British jazz fusion community in the 1970s. And he'd played with Keith Tippett's sextet, and also including with Elton Dean on this album. And he also appeared with Elton Dean on Keith Tippett's albums in 1970 and 1971, which also had Mark Cherig. Oh, and so he also played live with Elton Dean, Robert Wyatt, and Mark Cherig in late 1970, and again alongside Wyatt on his own album, The End of an Ear. So yeah, there is more. They were in the crew of that time. They were in the circles between Keith Tippett, Elton Dean, Mark Cherig, and Robert Wyatt. So interesting to hear that it's not just names on a page. I like to see them as sort of being in the same circles and having having like a camaraderie and playing with each other in that sense. So yeah, I like their I didn't get to hear, I don't know where the cornet, where Mark Cherig, there was sort of whistling on there, it sounded like, but maybe that was the cornet sort of playing these very whispery sounds on there. I'm not sure. But definitely, yeah, Robert Wyatt, Neville Whitehead, and Elton Dean on that one. So that one was cool. I like that a lot. I like the sort of freedom of it, yeah, without the foundations of a piano playing comping chords. But anyway, yeah, just to finish out some of that Wyatt, he talked at length about the freedom the musicians had in the studio. With this band, I'm trying to get some space back into my music. Arrangements, freedom, and all those different procedures can make satisfying music, which is very hard to define, but the actual effect is a certain kind of density. I admire the sense of space you get from Miles Smiles or the Miroslav Vitus album. The density of rock bands can be very crude and unrewarding, so many things are happening in the quartet. I'm constantly playing things I've always wanted to play but never been able to, and that's a result of the more fluid situation. So yeah, he has a very a good way with words on this, on describing sort of what he's looking for and the results that he can get with these players. So for sure with jazz, obviously the difference between jazz and jazz fusion and rock, is very, a concrete difference. Jazz is, it's a little bit more fluid, creates a little bit more open, ability to have open space. But rock, obviously rock has developed, there's hybrids in rock as well, and there's room for space in rock. It's just something, in some avenues, it's a very concrete thing, and it's a little bit less flexible in that way. But yeah, I see what he's saying for sure. And I'm sure, this album, I haven't listened to the rest of it. So, but from these two selections so far, I really love the sort of bookends side of these, one very ethereal and one a little bit more free jazz, but definitely both having the same sort of theory and ideology, is sort of having the ability to have a fluidity into music and have space and sort of create these experimentations, without the so yeah, I feel like this for him was just, it's amazing that he had the outlet to be able to do this. He was able to just sort of have this, I want to create this album, and not sure what's going to happen with it, but it's a piece of the puzzle. So I'm glad I included it in this Canterbury retrospective, because it definitely adds another piece to the puzzle, going from the Wildflowers to Gong to this album, to Kevin Ayers' solo album, to Egg, and Beyond, and all those other groups. Yeah, it's really cool to hear sort of all their different interpretations on what they wanted to get out there into the music world. So again, yeah, so that's Robert Wyatt's solo album. Yeah, I appreciate you coming along for the ride for this. So we've got some more coming up. Yeah, we're only about halfway through the list. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying it. I'm really appreciative, because I've never explored many of these groups, and it's really interesting to get an idea of, especially chronologically from 63 to 75, all the groups that we think of sort of in the rock genre and jazz genre, and where they fit into the music scene. It's really cool to listen to this, a lot of these groups, and feel like, okay, these are more edgier, a little bit less, more unknown. So it's interesting to sort of fit them into the picture, to see where, there was a lot more diversity, there was a lot more experimentation and just creativity, than what we think of all the time. So, but I appreciate you guys being here. Please come for the next one, and yeah, as always, give as many recommendations and I will always do a video once a month to bring them back to you and give my reactions to some of the great ones. And yeah, please vote the top 3 to 5 your favorite acoustic blues, and also your top 3 to 5 electric blues songs in the last 100 years, I would say. I appreciate it. Yeah, I look forward to putting that out there in the future as well. And lastly, yeah, we have Joni Mitchell, For the Roses, coming up in the next couple weeks. I have heard that one before, but it'll be interesting to get a little bit more, a deeper look into it. And yeah, always we'll be doing some new albums coming up. I'll try to have that be a constant thing. So Joni Mitchell, Gil Scott-Heron after that, and then yeah, it's wide open. We'll do some new polls for some great full albums that we're gonna do. So appreciate it, guys, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, bye-bye.